Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the July session of Creative Mornings. My name is Katia Giri. I am the host of Creative Mornings Munich, and I'm truly happy to see so many of you joining us for this session on the topic of Underdog. Before we go into the monthly theme and before I introduce the speaker, I would like to say a few words about Creative Mornings for those who may be new. And before that even, I'm highly encouraging you to grab some coffee in case you haven't done this yet, or tea or anything else, so that you are well equipped because we have an amazing talk coming up. Now, for those who are new to Creative Mornings, just a few words about our community. So Creative Mornings was funded over 10 years ago in the US, in New York, with the very simple idea of hosting once a month a creative event where several creatives would get together around free breakfast and coffee and listen to an inspiring talk. Soon after this event was taking place in the US, different chapters around the world started organizing it locally as well. And here in Munich, we are one of the over 200 chapters, I believe 215 is the current number, in over 60 countries around the world. So this means that it adds 20,000 people attending Creative Mornings talks around the world every month. And our events are and will always be free. Now, the event today wouldn't be possible without our global and local sponsors. So I would like to briefly say a big thanks to all of them and as well tell you a little bit about certain gifts and surprises that we have prepared together with the sponsors. First of all, thank you MailChimp for being our global sponsor for marketing. In case you haven't heard this yet, we mentioned it last month. MailChimp has recently acquired CreativeMedia, which is a bi-monthly magazine that delivers real stories, insights, and even more to help you work better, live smarter, and be happier. So MailChimp and Courier have teamed up for a special gift for Creative Mornings community, and Courier has made an exclusive digital mini edition of their annual issue, Business of Design. Super interesting. This has been made just for the Creative Mornings community, and we want to offer this to you guys for free. So on the link that is going to be shared in the chat, don't hesitate to go and check it out for yourself. I would like to say big thanks to WordPress as well, who are hosting our web pages and making sure that you guys can subscribe. They have prepared together with Creative Mornings the Own Your Content series, which is now back for the third season. And I'm highly encouraging you as well to check out the library of interviews and resources from amazing creatives, as well on the link that we will be sharing here in the chat and in the newsletter after the event. Last but not least, thank you Basecamp, global sponsor of Creative Mornings for project management, who has recently, on top of the project management tool, launched Hey, a new email service. And this email service, we are happy to offer it for you to try out for free during 2 weeks. So here as well comes the link that you can try it out and take it for a spin. Now, thanks to the local sponsors, we are able to actually organize the event that we're hosting today. So I would first of all love to say big thanks to Co-Crea and 80 Dots for being our location sponsors for this month, hosting us so that we can have an amazing Q&A session and as well a beautiful talk delivered to you in July. I'm also saying a very, very big thanks to Spinning Wheels and to Nicola Riva for being with us and recording the talk so that we can spread it even further. And then as well to Raphael Schindgen, who is coaching the speakers and making sure that the talk is delivered in the best of the ways. One final thing, in case you're present on social networks, do not hesitate to take a photo of yourself with a computer from the place where you're screening this event and post it on your social networks. We would love to spread the word about Creative Mornings Munich even further, and who better to hear about it than your friends and followers, right? Now, without further ado, the theme of July is Underdog, a really interesting topic that has resonated with us on so many different levels. And I'm super happy to be able to introduce Anna Werner with you guys. She has prepared a very inspiring talk, and I hope you're going to find it as interesting as I had when I read the abstract. So, Anna, the stage is yours. Please.
What do you think about these two pictures? What's the very first impression you have about the two women? The whole concept of casting shows is based on the fact that we have an intuitive impression about people when we first see them. And we especially to get surprised when it turns out that the underdog is in fact a really great singer and turns out to become the star of the show. The underdogs in casting shows are always very unimpressive. They look insecure, they often come from poor families, or they are overweight. These things really seem to increase the chance that they can sing. You overlook and underestimate them. Then they go on stage, they do a great performance, and it's an amazing story for the media. Why is the picture of the underdog so highly relevant for us? If we notice it or not, but we permanently generate assumptions about the world around us. And that's great. Most of the time, there is nothing wrong about it. But not only about the candidates in casting shows, but also in life, our intuitions can be wrong. We oversee things, we underestimate things, and we mess things up. In casting shows, our deception about the underdog is resolved. But in life, we mostly don't notice when we make unconscious errors, because they happen unconsciously. Imagine that you look for a perfect singer, and you only let very self-confident and beautiful people perform in your show. Susan probably would not get any chance. When we think about it, we notice that her look does not really say much about her skill to sing. But let's just imagine, you have this tendency to pick people whose face you find beautiful. Or let's say people who have black hair, or people who wear purple shirts. Imagine you follow a pattern that influences your choice, but the arguments the pattern is based on is not related to what you're looking for at all. That wouldn't be very helpful, right? When you're truly looking for a good singer, we may even call it a systematic error. And these errors actually influence our whole life. They influence the small as well as the big decisions that we make. About the place we live in, about the job we have, and also about the relationship we're in. The fact that we do not notice some of them does not mean that we don't make them. It only means we don't notice. We are not aware. So let's now have a closer look at the way we think, at the way we judge, and at the way we make decisions. We can find out how these errors can happen to make sure that we know how we can improve our judgments and how we can improve the small as well as the big decisions in our life. There is this wonderful book which is about clear thinking and decision making, which you've probably at least seen. It's called Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. It's really funny because I know so many people who bought it, but I do not know many people who really read it to the end. So let's now look into it and get a first basic understanding of recent research about cognitive science. Let's learn about some theory and also agree on some common terms, which will help us to understand where the errors come from. And finally, what we can do about them. The title names two ways ideas come to our mind: fast and slow. Let's look at the fast thinking first. When I ask you to calculate 2 plus 2, the answer will probably come to your mind automatically, and you don't have to put a lot of effort into it. That's our fast thinking. Also, when you have a very first impression about a person on a photo or a person you've just met, this impression comes to your mind quite automatically. Have you been in the situation that you've had a first idea about someone and it came so fast that you felt sorry about it? When your phone rings and you pull it out your pocket, you do that quite automatically. You don't think about it. When something catches your attention, because, for example, you hear someone talking about a specific topic you're interested in, or you walk by a shop window and you see something that you like, it catches your attention automatically. You don't actively decide so. In all these scenarios, it feels like you don't really think about it. But even if you think you don't think, there is a mental process going on in your mind. And this is our fast thinking. On the other hand, we have the slow thinking, things that really require your attention. For example, your phone rings and you have to get up and search for it because it's not in your pocket. And you actively have to get around and have a look to see where it is. Have you already planned your weekend? Whenever you sit down and you make decisions about what you're going to do next, what you're going to do after the Creative Mornings events, that's your slow thinking. It does not happen automatically and it costs some mental effort. Sometimes we even have to actively concentrate on what we do. For example, when we do complicated calculations about our taxes, for example. Kahneman and other psychologists call the two ways of thinking System 1 and System 2. It's easy to remember. The fast thinking comes first, so it's 1, and the slow thinking comes slower, comes next, so it's 2. The two systems do not mean that there are separated parts in your brain that do the different operation. It's just a metaphor for the two different ways ideas come to our mind. The collaboration between the two systems is super efficient. As long as you're awake, both of them are active. The fast thinking, System 1, produces intuitions, impressions, and feelings all the time with almost no effort. And whenever System 1 is overwhelmed, System 2 takes over and selectively invests energy where it is needed. Let's now focus on System 1, on our fast thinking, because this is where it gets interesting. System 1 is able to work with little effort because it automates and it simplifies, which is amazing because it means we don't have to spend much energy on routines. You can do a weekly grocery shopping and be on the phone at the same time, and you don't have to think about every single step. So simplification is a super useful skill. The way System 1 simplifies happens systematically. So there are patterns System 1 follows. And scientists have done a lot of research for the last decades on those patterns. I'm talking about them because when we understand the patterns that are used by System 1 to simplify, we can also understand how errors in our thinking occur. We'll have a look at 3 of those errors. They were given names, there are official definitions, and we will also see a lot of examples. And this will help us to recognize them when they happen to us, which increases the chance that we can avoid them. So let's jump to the first one. Let's have a look at the photos we've looked at before. Having a first impression about a person seems just so normal to us because it happens all the time. But think about it. We know that the attractiveness and the skill to sing are not related at all. And still we have this very strong feeling when we look at these 2 pictures. And this brings us to the first effect. It's called the halo effect. The halo effect is the tendency for positive impressions of a person, of a company, or of a brand or a product in one area to positively influence your opinion or feelings in other areas, which makes sense. It makes sense to connect areas that are related, but the tendency is there even when there is no real relation between those. What does it mean for your life? Whoever you meet, it doesn't matter if it's a friend of your friend, if it's a new colleague or a new customer, you always follow those patterns. When you listen to a speaker on stage, for example, you consider him or her to be more competent when you find the person attractive. How much do you actually know about the doctors you go to or about your bank consultant? The less you know about people, the stronger your impression of them is influenced by very superficial arguments. And this means also that one and the same thing can look totally different when you see it in different contexts. So when you know a person and you've had a great first impression, the person can do something which is exactly the same that was done by another person, but when your first impression was a different one, you see the action in a totally different light. Experiments have also shown that even when you get more information about the person, we always overweight the very first impression we have. Let's therefore have a look at Alan and Ben. They both have exactly the same attributes. And still, we have a different picture of them just based on the order in which we read those attributes. We all know the halo effect from our own experience. We have experienced that the impression we had about a person in one area influenced the impression we had about a person in another area. And we also know that it does not always make sense. But what can we do about it? To answer this question, I would first of all like to show you two different words. No one actually asked you to connect them. And also you were not really willing to do so. But your mind automatically created a connection between them. You came up with a story, with a situation in which the pain was caused by the chocolate pudding. What does this show us? It shows us that we have no voluntary control over our system one thinking. We cannot really influence in that moment what we intuitively think about people or situations. So the only thing we can do is to slow down and to reflect on what has just happened, to use system 2 and to question our intuitions. When we question our intuition, we can increase the chance that we get rid of our wrong assumptions. One question that you could ask yourself is, what's the important information that I need to answer a question properly? And next, not only think about what you know, but especially about what do I not know. I'm very happy when you keep these questions in mind and you really try them out and share your experience with me. After looking at the halo effect, let's now jump to the second idea. Kahneman came up with an expression that describes a more general idea that is also behind the halo effect. He calls it WYSIATI, which stands for what you see is all there is. It's obvious that we cannot take information into account that we don't have. But there is another weird thing our mind is doing instead. Let's have a look at these three characters. What's the funny thing about it? We've just made a conclusion and we didn't notice it. And that's exactly what happens when information is missing. We make conclusion about information that we don't have, and we don't realize it. We just make up stories that fit the available information. And the problem about it is, when we first looked at the three characters, we also did not notice that there is any other way to see the things. We've just seen this one reality, and that was the one truth we saw. Let's repeat what we've just said before. We can't take information into account that we don't have. Yeah, that's for sure. But we've just seen that also we do not even think about the fact that there might be information missing. We all know about the situation that we are with a friend who's telling us about a really annoying situation, with another friend, with a colleague, or maybe with a partner. In these situations, we are super likely to agree on those people. First of all, because we like him or her. And second, because we hear arguments from only one side. But keep the picture in mind, the picture with the three characters. Sometimes one and the same character, one and the same argument, one on the same fact can look totally different when you change the context, when you change the way it is told, when you change the information that you give around those facts. When you really want to give a good friend the best possible advice, it might be a good idea to not let someone just live in an illusion, but to question. We've now heard about 2 different effects and are now going to the 3rd one. When we think about decision making, we often think about options we want to go for. But decisions is also about letting things go. And this is what the 3rd effect is about. When did it last happen to you that you felt like you would like to let something go, but you've already put so much effort into it? Maybe it was a relationship, maybe it was a career. It happened to me last year that I let my old job behind, and it was really hard because I felt like I've been working for that company in that position for 2 years now, and it's such a shame that I throw all this experience away. Have you ever heard about sunk costs? It's a sum we have paid in the past that is no longer relevant for our decisions in the future. It's very often the case that our investments from the past are not longer relevant, but we don't notice that. The investment of the past is not a relevant argument. Why is it not? Whatever option you go for, you have already put the effort into it. So there is nothing you can do about it. When you decide between 2 different options, you normally look at the differences between them. So what are the options? What are their benefits? And what's the investment? The investment that differentiates them, and not the one they have in common. And that's the investment from now on. Having a look on our subconscious and the way we think was a very great first step to improve on our judgment and on our decisions. Before you can do anything about it, you really have to understand what is happening, and also you have to admit that these errors happen to you even though you don't notice them. They happen to me even though I don't notice them. So they happen to all of us. The next step in our daily life is to actively pause and question. And here's the thing. The more stressed you are, the harder it is to identify intuitive errors. So it's really important that you pause and then come up with creative questions. We've just learned that we do have the tendency to think that we are right even when we are not. So you gain more new information when you assume that you are wrong. And you ask questions like, if this is not true, how does it come? It feels like it's true. And when you cannot answer one of your questions, or you can't answer any other question, you know your mind can easily come up with any random story about it. But what about the option, I don't know? For me, this sentence is not about weakness, it's a strength. That you manage to not get tricked by your mind. Maybe it's the first step you do to let an idea on the stage of your life that looked like an underdog, and now it gets the chance to turn into a star. Thank you for listening, and thanks for your attention. Hello everyone, I'm very happy you joined our session. The video you just saw was pre-recorded a few days back, and now we are live, so it's your chance to ask any question whenever you feel like there is something unclear, or if you want to give me critical feedback. I'm happy for every kind of discussion. I'm just reading, I love the talk, thanks. What was the book you mentioned at the beginning? Yeah, the book I mentioned is Thinking Fast and Slow. I read it in German. In German it's called Schnelles Denken, Langsames Denken, and this is actually the base of what I was talking about. The book is full of biases, of cognitive errors we make, and also the author references to many other scientists, to many other books and papers. So when you have a look at the list of sources at the back, you will find a lot of information, not only from him, but also from other researchers and other experiments, which is amazing because you get an all-round view about the topic. Maria is saying it's called Thinking Fast and Slow. Exactly, that's it. The book was actually recommended to me by a friend, a very good friend, and he was so much into it and he was so inspired by it that I could not help myself to also read it, because I was just so curious about it, and it turned out to be a great idea. So I can recommend it to anyone, to everyone. Yeah. Thanks for the great talk. Hi, Alessa. How did you come up with this topic, and how did using the information impact your life personally? I came up with this topic. That's, I think, the story that I've just told after a friend recommended it to me. And it has influenced my life in the way that I now think more critical about my own intuitions. That's what I was trying to show in the talk, which is hard. It's not an easy thing to do. And I'm not saying that it works all the time. And still, when you talk about these topics, you might still make intuitive errors. So there is no real, you always make those errors. They happen, and there's nothing you can do about it to make sure that you don't make them, but at least you can try. And also you can try to set up an environment in which errors can be seen and can also be corrected. For example, when you work for a company, the culture of the company, or when you live with your family, also the way you talk to each other is, very, I don't know how to say it. There are huge differences in a culture, and when you really manage to design a corporate culture, for example, where it is allowed to criticize each other and also to mention when you notice that someone else did any cognitive errors, that's what really helps to avoid them, not only on a personal level, but also in a bigger environment where it's not only you, but also colleagues or friends or family members being part of the system. Mary's saying, very interesting, thank you for the examples and pictures, making it very clear. I also like the nice slides with the yellow sketches. How did you create them? Actually, I'm doing a lot of visual work. That's also part of my job. I help companies also to communicate visually. So I use my tablet, my iPad, and Apple Pencil, and use Procreate, which is the app for drawing, and that's where I write and draw the slides I use. And normally I also use more pictures than I did this time, but I've just not have enough. I didn't have enough time to prepare more of the pictures. But normally my slides are full of visuals, and it's a really cool way to communicate, and it catches attention. So I can recommend you to really use a tablet and a pen to visualize what you're talking about. I hope that this answered your questions. I'm not getting it. Okay. Can you tell me what you mean?
There's more questions before that one.
There were more questions.
Yeah.
Okay, I did not realize that. Thank you. Thank you for the hint. There is a great team in the background supporting me, which is amazing. Yeah, thank you. Katja is asking, what was the biggest challenge for you when it comes to fast thinking? One of the challenges was to really admit that they happen to me, even when I don't notice them. That's what I was also saying in my talk. Because when you feel like you know what is going on, it's not always the case. And really to admit and to step back and to question your own intuitions, that is really hard. But I think the fun part about it is, as soon as you don't see it as a weakness, but as a strength, you start to really see it as a puzzle, and to try to find out what you're, to try to find the errors you make. So that's really also the fun part about it, and I actually like it. So the first part, really understanding what is going on, was harder than the second one, and now I find it a cool thing to really question myself and also to question others. It's always easier to question others. That's what Kahneman in his book also says. That's why the company culture and all these things are super important, because questioning the colleagues or people around you is easier than questioning yourself. Because the reason for this is that whenever you don't make the decision, you're less stressed about it, and you're not cognitively involved so much. So when someone else does it, you're more relaxed, you can lean back, and that's why you have more capacity with your system too, to really sit down, slow down, and think about other errors, or the errors other makes, Yeah, but also the own errors are there all the time. So it's also a fun part to try to find them. Thank you for the talk. Do you think that we can still put something valuable from our sunk costs? Thank you, Francesca, for that question. I think you can use them to learn for the future. So when you notice that you've put a lot of effort into something that was not really helpful, or not helpful in the way you thought it would be, you can take it as an experience and try to not make the same mistake next time. I think that's what we can learn from them. Is there a way to learn it? I'm not sure what you mean by it. I guess that you mean avoiding the errors, the subconscious errors. If that's what you mean, I can say the way to learn it is really to learn what they are about, to try to understand them, and then you are more likely to see them when they happen. And that's all we can do. I mean, that's not all we can do, but it's all we can do in that situation, whenever that error happens to you. So, yeah, really, reading that book is my biggest recommendation. I love it, and it's really helpful, and there are so many examples and insights in it. And also you really experience the thing. I also did some examples in my talk where you could not only hear and understand, but also experience the thing. And that's exactly what you need to do to make sure that you increase the chance to understand and to also notice the errors when they happen to you. And this book is also full of experiences. So you do not only hear or read about them, but you really experience them. And that's what I loved about it, because it really makes you understand what is going on. Thank you for the talk. Anna is providing trainings to learn sketching on the iPad. I took part in 2. They were inspiring and really helpful to start. Thank you, Nina. Thank you very much for this. Yeah, I'm doing another sketchnote training at the 12th of September. If you're interested, you can check it out on Eventbrite. You filed the link on my LinkedIn profile. So if you're interested in sketching, then this is a great opportunity. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. That's what Creative Mornings is saying, and that's what I'm also saying. Thank you for participating. I think time is over. Feel free to contact me if you still have questions, or if you want to discuss the whole topic. I'm always very happy to discuss it, not only on a personal level, but also how it influences society and education, politics and law. So yeah, just contact me and feel free to also participate in the Creative Mornings community. There are more events coming. They have a great newsletter, so keep updated, and we're happy to see you next time. Thank you very much.